So welcome to today's event. Good morning and to those of you who are from Asia, and good evening for those of you who are in North America and other part of the world. My name is Wu Xun. I'm a faculty member with the Hong Kong University of Science and Technologies. I'm one of the co-moderators of today's event. Professor Jiang Zhuoren from Zhejiang University will be the other moderators for the session here. So today's event is part of the Sino-US Scholar Dialogue Series on Public Administration. It is co-organized by the section on Chinese administration of ASPA and the School of Public Affairs at the Zhejiang universities. So far, 5 topics have been covered by this series, including local government and fiscal response, a challenge and opportunity for international cooperation, health policy and health policy in the post-COVID-19 era, local governance and innovation, and environmental governance on the global challenge. And today we are going to cover a topic related to technology policy. The title will be The Future of Technologically Mediated Communication when AI meets human communication. I look forward to the session here. So before we begin today's dialogue session, I'd like to invite the 2 conveners of the theory, Professor Xiaozhong Liu from the City University of New York, John Jay College. He's a professor and the director in the Department of Public Management. Professor Liu, please.
Sure, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Xiaozhong Liu. I am a professor and a director at the City University of New York, John Jay College. Welcome to the 6th and also the last of the Sino-US dialogue series, co-organized by myself and my dear friend and a colleague from Zhejiang University, Professor Zhuoren Jiang. So I have to say, it is absolutely a pleasure to organize this dialogue series. Professor Zhang and I had 3 goals in mind at the beginning. And one is to identify topics important at this moment across borders. And second is to gather scholars from both sides of the world to learn from each other. And third is to further providing a global perspective of a public policy and administration. And today I'm glad to share that we have achieved all 3. And, I would just want to give a shout out to my friend again, to Professor Zhang. And without her support, without the support from the section of which I'm retiring from as a chair, without all the peoples involved, this will not be possible. And today, I just want to say we have a fantastic topic, and it's about AI, and all of a sudden, when I read that topic, I feel an urgency of a possibility of being replaced. So, and I find that this is so relevant for today. So I welcome everybody being here, and I will turn the floor to Professor Zhang in Zhejiang University.
Okay, thanks. So good morning, good evening, dear speakers, colleagues, and friends. So thank you from different parts of the world to participate in Sino-US Scholar Dialogue series on public administration. On behalf of School of Public Affairs, Zhejiang University, I would like to extend my warmest welcome and sincere thanks to all the guests and participants. So it's great to meet with you. As Elaine just mentioned, this is the 6th and the last dialogues jointly planned by the section on Chinese public administration of ASPA and our school. And Elaine mentioned that we had planned 3 goals. now we have achieved all the goals. So in the past 5 dialogues, as Professor Wu just mentioned, we cover different topics. So today the topic will focus on the technologically mediated communication. So next, please allow me to take a few minutes to introduce our university and school. Located in Hangzhou, one of China's most picturesque cities, Zhejiang University is one of China's top higher education institutions, as well as one of its oldest. Founded in 2005, School of Public Affairs insists on being a leading public administration school and a pioneer in digital governance in China. Adhering to the model of world affairs as responsibility and truth as faith, School of Public Affairs is committed to excellence in teaching, learning, and research, and nurturing leaders. Currently, we have more than 120 faculty members and over 3,000 degree-seeking students. Besides, we provide 2 English taught master programs. MP program has been accredited by NASPA. Finally, special thanks to our partner at SAPA, former President Elaine, Han Jing, Qihang, who worked with us over 1 year and benefit a lot to us. We believe that we would get together in person in Hangzhou very soon. So please enjoy this academic feast. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Professor Zhang and Professor Liu for the opening remarks. And this is a great initiative. I look forward to more such initiative take places in the near future. Thank you very much. So now I'd like to turn over to Professor Zhuoren Jiang, my co-moderators, to introduce the speaker and the discussion of today's event. Professor Jiang.
Thank you, Professor Wu. Thank you, Professor Wu. Hi, everyone. My name is Zhuoren Jiang. I'm today's co-moderator, and I'm an assistant professor from Zhejiang University. Next, please allow me to introduce today's distinguished guests. I think both of them have very rich research experience and numerous academic achievement. So I just create a very simple 2-page slides to introduce them. I will show my desktop, I think. Sorry, I should test it.
It looks like he just cut off.
Zhuoren, are you here?
So since we have the speaker here, Susan, would you mind to do a self-introduction?
I would be happy to do that.
Please, the floor is yours.
Yes, my name is Susan Herring, and I'm a professor of information science at Indiana University. And I'm also, we have Zhuoren back, but we can't hear you. Are you muted?
Zhuoren, you have to unmute yourself. We cannot hear you.
Okay, sorry. I found a very technology problem, which I think is very related to today's topic. So I will quickly show my slides and quickly finish my part. Yeah. Okay. How can I move this. Great. Okay. Oh, I'm a little nervous. Okay. Today we are very honored to have Susan C. Herring, professor, as today's speaker. She's a professor from Information Science, Adjunct Professor of Linguistics, and the Director of the Center for Computer-Mediated Communication at Indiana University. For the past 30 years, she has been enriching structural, pragmatic, interactional, and social phenomenon in communication mediated by digital technologies. Her recent research has focused on multimodal CMC, including communication mediated by telepress robots and graph icons such as emoji and stickers. I think that's very interesting. And currently, she's researching the use of augmented reality video filters. She's a past editor of the Journal of Computer-Mediated Communication. She currently edits the journal Language at Internet. She has a lot of publications and 3 edited volumes. Today, she will bring us a presentation entitled "Face Filters in Video-Mediated Communication, Authenticity, Distrust, and Social Interaction." I think there could be a very interesting and maybe a very cross-disciplinary discussion today. Professor Herring, thank you very much for coming today. We also invite Professor Xiaozhong Liu as today's discussant. He's an associate professor from School of Informatics, Computing and Engineering at Indiana University, Bloomington, and Computer and Data Science at Worcester Polytechnic Institute. He served as senior consultant to Alibaba Damo Academy, the research arm of Alibaba, and leads a large-scale NLP projects. He has published more than 150 papers in leading computer science conference and information science journals, for example, PNAS, JSIS, AAAI, etc. He holds 9 patents in AI and NLP. He has a very broad research area, including data science, NLP, explainable AI, graph mining, cybercrime and security, and computational social science. Currently, his algorithm APIs are called more than 170 million times per day on different active e-commerce and web search platforms, and effectively outperforms previous methods by 10% on average. Okay. Actually, Xiaozhong is also my advisor of my PhD dissertation, and he also helped a lot to organize today's session. So thank you very much, Xiaozhong. We are looking forward to your views on today's topic. Okay, I think I've cost too much time, and I guess you all can't wait to hear today's presentation, so I will stop here. Professor Herring, if you are ready, please begin your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for your introduction. It's an honor to be here with you today. I should say, first of all, that I'm not an expert in public policy, nor am I an expert in artificial intelligence. But I believe that what I'm going to talk to you about today has relevance for public affairs and public policy. I can't do that. So the human face is very important for the expression of emotion, of nonverbal communication. It's identity. It's how we recognize people by their faces. It's one of the most important factors in evaluating attractiveness. It can even be considered an object of art that we can decorate with makeup or tattoos. But during the COVID-19 pandemic, as you've experienced there in China, and we also have experienced in the United States, people have been wearing masks. And during that period of masking, a lot of social information and emotional information is lost. So it's not surprising that there's been an explosion of video-mediated communication during this period of time. Zoom, for example, saw the number of meeting participants increase 3,300% as a result of the pandemic. 50% of users are under 34, not just us old professional people using Zoom. The live streaming industry grew almost 100% between April 2019 and April 2020. And this is a mode that's favored especially by millennials. 63% of millennials watch live streaming content regularly. And last but not least, TikTok became the most downloaded non-game app globally in the first half of 2021. And TikTok is especially used by younger people, Gen Zers, 60% of users. And thanks to Zoom, of course, I'm able to be with you here today. So video, people assume in general that video represents people's offline faces more or less faithfully. In fact, there are quite a few theories about this related to social presence and media richness. Video is considered to be the second richest mode of communication after face-to-face. And in this little diagram here, based on media richness theory, we have face-to-face at the top, followed by video, and then audio only, and then textual computer-mediated communication, and towards the bottom end, formal written documents. So video represents people's faces more or less faithfully, right? Well, not always, as it turns out. One problem is the existence of deep fakes. Deep fakes, from deep learning plus fake, is AI-based technology used to produce or alter video content so that it presents something that did not, in fact, occur. The way it works is a program is trained to replace or synthesize faces or speech using artificial neural networks. A famous example, early example, was a deep fake of President Barack Obama that was created in April 2018 by Jordan Peele, a comedian, and BuzzFeed, a social media site, using Fake App, an early application that enabled the creation of deep fakes.
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time, even if they would never say those things. So, for instance, they could have me say things like, I don't know, Killmonger was right, or Ben Carson is in the sunken place, or how about this, simply, President Trump is a total and complete dipshit.
And this was during the period when Donald Trump was president of the United States. Now, obviously, Barack Obama did not say these things. Deep fakes have been used primarily in the early years to put celebrities' heads on pornographic videos, to discredit politicians for fraud and other malicious purposes. A study that was recently done found that the incidence of deep fakes created by experts doubled between 2018 and 2020, and that was not even including deep fakes sent between private individuals. 93% of the deep fakes were targeted at public figures, especially in the United States. So there are many policy concerns as regards deep fakes. What's perhaps even more concerning, or adding to the concern, is now there are mobile apps available that make it very easy to create deep fakes, even if you don't have any skill with computer science. And there are two main types of these. The first one allows you to deep fake your head onto another body, typically in a movie or a video of a celebrity. So this can happen in videos and GIFs and anything that's video face-like. I'm going to show you an example from the Reface app. There's also a Chinese app that you may know, the Zhao app, that was introduced in August of 2019. And there's no sound here, but you can just watch. So here we see the young man's face being morphed onto various clips from movies. The second type is where a deep fake, you can deep fake another head onto your body. And this can be done in video chat. And here's an example that I found on the web. Oops, come back.
One second.
Hey guys.
I
Elon Musk.
Yes. Looks like I got into the wrong conference in Zoom. How are you doing, guys?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I'm nice.
This
Thank
is
you.
amazing.
Nice hair color, by the way.
Thank you.
It's Elon.
Well, then have a nice day. Bye.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a nice day.
So somebody deep faked Elon Musk, the owner of Tesla, the creator of Tesla. Although the person who was doing the deep fake had a German accent, and Elon Musk does not have a German accent. So that would have been a tell for me. Now, as the Washington Post claimed, anyone with an iPhone can now make deep fakes. This quote particularly struck my attention by Tech Magnet. They were talking about the Zhao app, and they said, the app is as easy as an Instagram filter. Well, it's interesting that they should make that comparison, because Instagram filters and social media filters in general have a lot in common with deep fakes. Now, these are augmented reality overlays that are popular on Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, and even on Zoom, and they visually modify the user's face and background, as we can see in these examples here in the bottom left, a very exaggerated picture of somebody using the virtual makeup features on Zoom. We have a Snapchat app that exaggerates the emotion expressions on the bottom, and a beauty enhancement filter on the top right. Social media filters can also change a user's gender or age, as in this example of a gender swap filter.
Oh God, this is really, really not good. Really, really not good.
And moreover, it's even possible to swap two users' faces using social media video filters. We can classify different types of video face filters along a continuum from subtle at one end to extreme at the opposite end. The subtle end starts with just changes in lighting, and then subtle beauty enhancements like smoothing the skin and brightening the eyes, to more glamorous types of beauty enhancements with makeup or changing the bone structure on a man's face to make a stronger chin. Then we get into the category of silly filters, which are playful overlays like turning your face into a stalk of broccoli or an orange. Then we have filters that are grotesque and distort the face, making the face increasingly unrecognizable. When we get to those filters that change the user's gender or age, now it's arguably no longer the same person, but a different version of that person. And finally, if we swap two users' faces, then obviously it's a different person altogether that is in your body. We can represent this schematically, as I've done here, as a diamond shape as opposed to a line. So if we start at the top with unmodified video and progress to the left and down, we come upon virtual makeup. So this is the subtle beauty enhancement here. Of course, it can range. It can be more subtle or less subtle. Then if we go down here to the bottom right, we have your exaggerated filter effects, animal faces like dogs and rabbits and various kinds of distortions. And then if we head up again, we have gender and age swap filters, which sometimes are very realistic, so they don't look exaggerated necessarily. And of course, the goal is to look exactly like unmodified video. Now, if we were to continue this trend outward in terms of heading towards things that are more artificial and yet appear more natural, we would come out to perhaps situating deepfakes out here. The goal of deepfakes, of course, is to be indistinguishable from unmodified video. We can consider this also along two dimensions. So on a vertical dimension, we go from apparently natural appearing videos at the top to ones that are clearly artificial at the bottom. But we can also think about a horizontal dimension, which is on the left, where we see just the minimum, the virtual makeup, more subtle appearance, is being true to the self, the way the self really looks. Whereas deep fakes, you are at that point actually representing another person. In between these extremes, we have what I would call a modified self, where the exaggerated effects are used, and something that I would call a not self, when a gender or age swap filter is used. So it's you, but the other gender, or it's you, but an old person. So it's a self and a not self. And we'll come back to this diagram later on. Now, why is filter use important? On the positive side, it's been claimed to, of course, it can improve people's appearance, and it's been claimed to increase self-confidence in online communication. It can also facilitate experimentation with identity, which may be particularly important for LGBTQ+ individuals who may feel that they were born in the wrong body. But on the negative side, there are problems with body dysmorphia, that is a dislike of one's own body. Many more young people these days have been going and requesting plastic surgery, and sometimes they are asking to look like their filtered online selves. And so when you see yourself looking beautiful online and then you see the way you really look, there can be a feeling of disappointment and self dislike. It can also, filters can also undermine trust in what you see online, creating potentially a very dangerous situation of disbelief by default, where people just are skeptical of everything they see and hear online. And finally, of course, especially with deep fakes, there's a strong potential for deception, impersonation, fraud, and so forth. So I'm going to tell you briefly today about some preliminary results from an early study that we're conducting in my lab, doing interviews with video filter users from 5 different cultural backgrounds. The research questions that the study aims to address, first of all, are who uses video filters? What filters do they use? Where do they use them? And why? With whom do people use video filters? What kind of relationships? How does video filter use affect users' self-esteem, self-concept? And how does the use of filters affect trust in social interaction? And if it turns out that there are negative effects on self-concept and trust, then we also want to know how widespread do users perceive filter use to be. And so we are aiming to interview slightly more than 50 participants, 10 each from China, India, South Korea, Spain, and the United States. So far, we've interviewed 40, or actually 39, because one interview hasn't been carried out yet, but it's scheduled. And so we have 10 from China, 9 women and 1 man, 9 from India, split pretty evenly between men and women, 5 from South Korea, I think only 1 man, 3 from Spain, 1 more is scheduled for tomorrow, and 12 from the United States, half men and half women. Overall, the ages range between 18 and 38, and 67% are women. We conducted semi-structured interviews over Zoom. They lasted about 45 to 60 minutes. And we asked the participants about their use of filters and their attitudes towards them, filter use and self-concept, how using filters made them feel, filter use and social interaction, and their perception of filter use in others. And then also, we asked the participants to record and share 3 short 15 seconds videos using different filters. And I'll show you some examples of those videos today. One of the main findings is that most participants said that they use beauty filters, except for some men and 1 gender non-binary participant. people estimated that beauty filters are used on social media on average, I would say between 40 and 90% of the time, although that varied. And some people estimated as low as 15%. And some people said that on TikTok, 100% of people use beauty filters. Generally, then the estimate is that usage is quite high. One Chinese male said, everybody can use filters. It's not built only for certain genders. It's built for everyone. But most people thought that filters were more used by women than by men. One US male said, I'd say specifically women. I don't think men are, not to say that men aren't insecure about how they look, but I guess more so women care more about how they look. And a Korean female said, in Korea, the men to women ratio would be 2 to 8. A lot of people commented that it's like makeup. One Spanish woman said, when I think of filters, I tend to think of beauty filters. When we ask ourselves, how do people use makeup? It's for me the same than using filters. Like maybe you have a bad face day and you want to use filters because you think, okay, I don't want to appear in social media with this face, but it's like the same as using makeup. You want to meet the standards. A Korean female said, because I can't be bothered to put on makeup myself, but when you click on filters, you can put on makeup in seconds. How convenient is that? The interviewer asked, would you use makeup filters when you already have makeup on? And she said, yes, it looks even better. One woman from India thought of the filters as being like a mask. I think of it like masking what you would have looked like without and trying to portray a perfect self. So notice terms here, meet standards and perfect self, an ideal of beauty. And so here are some samples of one of the most common results that we found about beauty filters was that people would say that they wanted to use very little filter effect to look as natural as possible. So here's some examples.
This filter is called nude something, so I'm pretty sure it's supposed to create a natural-ish look. So that's one of the reasons I like it, because it may make look better, but it still looks like me.
This is my favorite filter. It changed me a little bit. Like I look a little prettier, and that's why I like
it, she says.
I like this filter because it can address some part on my face that I am not very satisfied with, and it can beautify myself a little bit, but not too much.
We noticed cultural differences as regards beauty filters. As one South Korean female commented, and I'll quote her at length because I think it's interesting. She said, I think some Asian countries are really obsessed with beauty filters, like Korea, China, Japan. But I think in Western countries like the United States, they don't use video filters to look good or better. They're using them just for fun. Because I think it's a culture difference because, you know, United States people don't really care about how you look, what you do in your day. I think it's called individualism. So yeah, they don't have to present themselves to look better in public because they already know they are fine with being true to themselves. Well, I think that the United States people that we've interviewed would not agree that they don't care about how they look. I think they care about how they look too, but maybe not quite as much. And then the Korean woman continued, but in Korea and China and Japan or some other Asian countries, you know, society kind of forces people to look good, look better. I think that makes some differences on frequency of using those filters from country to country. And several other people commented too about societal pressure to use filters. A Spanish woman said, I think also I use beauty filters also because of society. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, like some kind of, I guess there's some kind of like societal pressure in a way where, you know, we want to look pretty for other people. And one man from India had a different take on societal pressure. He said someone who works for a beauty industry or somebody who is in marketing or anything that's like a front-facing business, it's their nature of business that even if they don't want to use it, they're forced to use it because might be their rivals or their competitors are taking advantage of the technology and they don't want to be behind them. So different motivations, but also pointing to societal pressure. We asked about gender filters as well, and most of the respondents have tried them privately, but not shared them publicly on social media. When asked what they thought about them, they were surprised sometimes that they looked like a male relative, a brother or a cousin. They reacted to it by thinking it was weird, sometimes very unattractive, like they would say, oh, I wouldn't date myself if I looked like that. Or they thought it was just funny and interesting. However, the one non-gender binary participant thought that it was affirming, and they said this quote, "It definitely made me feel that I would use it before I even realized that I was non-binary. And then, like, looking back at those early videos, you could definitely see I was happier when I was using the filter, the gender filter. Or like the idea was just in the back of my mind, but using those filters started to spark my interest more so, because I could see what I could potentially look like. So I think it was very affirming." And here is that gender non-binary participant here, and you can hear them speak about the filter.
I'm using one of the bearded and glasses filters on Snapchat. And I've used this one for about 2 years now, and it randomly came up and I used it because my friend used it.
So they've used it for 2 years, one of their favorites. We asked about age filters. Have you used age filters and how did it make you feel? Most people have tried them privately, again, but not shared them on social media. They did it because they were curious to see how they would look older, more than the baby one, maybe more than the ones that made you look very young. They tried out the ones that made you look very old because they wanted to see what they would look like. And of course, everybody, if you live long enough, will get old. So this is more relevant. We're not going to turn back in time and become babies. They often commented that they looked like an older relative. One woman said, "I never realized how much I looked like my grandmother before." And they thought it was weird, funny, and or interesting. One US female commented, "The times that I do use Instagram for filters, it's more for like the silly ones where it's like, oh, what age do I look like? And you know, like, how is your future going to be? Like those, just to try it out for fun. But those are something you don't post, you just do for fun, those type of filters." We also asked about authenticity, and we asked specifically, do video filters ever make you feel more true to yourself? And this was something that was claimed in the literature. And pretty much everybody said no, except for the gender non-binary participant who felt that it did make them feel more true to themselves. And one Chinese woman who said that funny filters are aligned with her personality, which is playful and humorous. Then we asked, do you feel fake at all when using video filters? And most people said yes, somewhat. But most people also said that they try not to use filters that make them look too different. So for example, one Indian female said, "Yes, a little. The filters I think are cheating. I can see the visible difference, and that is why I'm using the filters, because I want to look different. So it is essentially fake." An Indian male said, in contrast, he said, "I don't think I feel fake because I know where the line is. And since I am just trying to have fun, I'm not putting any point across through any filter or not trying to sell myself to anybody using the filters." And then we asked them, do you ever use filters that make you look very different from your normal self? And even though most people said that they used only filters that added very modest changes, everybody said that they did use filters that made them look very different. And these were funny and playful filters like these examples here.
Hey, so I'm using this filter now of the Dragon of Shrek. This is very obviously not the way that I look. So I think this is funny. I will use it. I am not tricking anyone into thinking that I look like this.
This is the first filter I'm trying to use for this study, and I like it because it is goofy. So if I'm in a goofy mood, I would send this to somebody.
And this filter, of course, alters the voice.
I use this filter in Christmas because it's so funny. So I just like take myself as a this character and just use it and post it to my friends, close friends. I'm not posting it on like social media, but I use it just for fun.
And so while women used these filters that were humorous, men used filters for a variety of effects, including humor, like in this first example.
All right, this broccoli one's really cool. I don't know, I just really like it. It's kind of modeled really well. It's like your eyes being really big. I can be like very, I don't know, very, very comical with my reactions. I could like overact how I react to something, like, whoa, that's really cool. You got an A on your test. Wow, I care so much. It's so cool.
But also because the effect is dramatic or even threatening or violent, as in these last two examples. And the second man, he's Indian, he's a little hard to hear. I'll repeat afterwards.
I like this filter as well. It's a little glitchy. Maybe it's because my phone is a little glitchy, but changes things, changes light and everything in my face.
I like this filter as well. It changes the light, it changes everything in my face, he said.
So this is a filter I'm using to like harass people sometimes. It feels like dark and horrible.
Fortunately, that was the only example we had of anybody saying that they used a filter to harass anyone, and probably he was just joking. So then we asked some questions about self-concept. We said, overall, what is the influence of filters on how you feel about yourself? And Americans were generally neutral or positive in answering this question. A woman said, I do feel a little bit of guilt, but then I don't. It's mainly positive, like I don't really find that big of a deal, especially since like I'm okay with the way that I use filters, like I don't find it to be perpetuating any alternate meanings or anything. And a man said, American man, I just feel that it's a good form of entertainment. So I like it amuses me, even though the results don't necessarily change the way I go about my day. So not much of an effect one way or the other. However, some Asians were more positive. One Chinese woman said, when I open my Instagram and looking at the filters I use more often, most of them are beauty enhancement. So maybe it's a way to make me feel better. It's a way of healing myself when I'm not feeling so happy. And yet, several women of different cultures mentioned a discrepancy between their enhanced and their natural appearance. A US woman, for example, said, when I see the filters that look like, make your features look a little more polished and your skin smooth and your makeup and everything, and then you use them, and then when the filter comes off and I see what I look like, it almost has a negative effect. I wish I looked a little bit more like the enhanced features. Another woman commented, when I've turned on a beauty filter, it almost for me points out flaws instead of making me more confident, just because I'm like, that's not how I look. A lot of people have a lot better eyelashes than I do. When I turn on a filter like that and I can physically see eyelashes, I know that I don't have those. And this was an Asian American woman. And then a Korean woman also commented about eyelashes in this video.
Hey guys, my name is Sue. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am wearing this filter. It looks kind of weird, kind of good. Look at this eyelash. This is so good. I wish I had this kind of eyelashes on my face. Bye.
We asked what are the most appropriate contexts for filter use. People said casual with friends and family, although some people said with Zoom enhancement, you can use them all the time, including in professional meetings. The Spanish woman said it's just like makeup or dressing up well. You're going to dress up, you're going to put on makeup, you're going to use Zoom makeup. And it's also used, particularly people commented in China, to commemorate holidays and special events.
Okay, so this is the filter I use for Chinese New Year. And this is on you like 7年. And right now I don't have any makeups on. It will just add, I didn't know that was gonna happen. It will add like concealer, lipstick, and eyebrows for me. I would say like this is how I usually look like if I have makeups on, but it's really not how I look like without makeup. I would send this to my family friends on WeChat, and usually I would save it on Instagram and post it too.
So even humorous filters often add makeup and enhance the physical appearance. Filter activities are very popular to perform with friends and family. These include posting filtered images and videos to social media, to your friends on social media, of course, but then privately exchanging filters with intimate friends, riffing back and forth, creating a filter with someone else, and then sharing filters when co-located with family members. Some people also talked about making filters with older family members by holding the camera up to grandma and showing her the filter. One Spanish woman said the grandmother complained, "I look so ugly, delete it, delete it." But it's funny. Generally, people report that these are humorous experiences. Least appropriate contexts for use are informal and professional communication, although one person who was a manager of a project team said she wore a filter of a pizza as a hat on her head during business meetings. And people also said it's not appropriate for serious topics. But a couple of people commented that they would use funny filters to soften more serious face-threatening acts, like being critical of their friends or admitting that they had done something embarrassing. And in the interest of time, I'm going to skip the quotes here and go on. So one of the main findings is a consolidation of the answers to several questions we asked. And so it could be summarized as, what filters do you use with whom? And there are three basic answers. People say they use beauty filters with the public to post publicly, to manage their image publicly. They go for a natural look and subtle enhancement. They use silly and absurd filters with intimates, such as their best friends and their siblings, for fun and social interaction. And they try out things like the gender and the age swap filters and the very unrealistic beauty filters just for themselves, for purposes of exploration or entertainment. As one Chinese female said, "I probably just use that for myself. Maybe I use it for this kind of hair-related filters. I want to try what I would look like when I dye my hair in this color." And we have examples of each of these different strategies here.
I use this filter a lot. This is a filter that I normally take like selfie with my girlfriend. So because it makes us look cute, and we use I normally use this, and then we will post it on social media.
This is a filter that I use with my siblings and I when we're trying to be funny, because it clearly is nowhere near close to my face.
I like this one. This one changed my hair color, and also gave me some little bit of makeup.
So we can return now to our schematic and add a new dimension. So not only do we have a distinction between selves and others, we have a distinction now in different kinds of audiences. The use of virtual makeup for more subtle effects is most common to present a natural version of the self to the public. The use of exaggerated filter effects, such as animal faces and distortions, presents a modified self playfully with close friends and other intimates. And the use of more dramatic or gender and age swap filters, which presents an alternative version of the self, tends to be used only with the self for purposes of exploration. And these different audiences are reminiscent of Irving Goffman, sociologist Irving Goffman's model of front stage and backstage in social presentation, where the public is the front stage and the backstage is with intimates. And now we have an even further backstage, which is only the self. Finally, we asked about deception, and we presented a hypothetical scenario asking, how would you feel if you found out that someone you had been video chatting with for a while had been using a filter all along, and when you saw them in person, they looked very different? And to our surprise, because we thought people would feel like their trust had been betrayed, but generally people were quite tolerant and even understanding. So here are some samples of what people said. A Chinese man said, "I'm okay with that. You want yourself to look good. That's totally fine. I'm totally cool with that." He didn't have any problem with this at all. An Indian male said, "I will be surprised, but I will not have any opinion about it as such. I'll be like, it's your choice, the way how you look at yourself, and I respect that it's your choice. No problem." An American woman said, "I think it would make me sad because I would just think like, why do they want to look like so completely different than they do in real life?" The interviewer asked, "Would you trust that person less?" And she said, maybe a little bit less, but not really." There we go. And then one Korean woman actually said, "I think it's somewhat cute because that other person wanted to look better because they like you or something. So I think that's cute. But if that person is really, really different, if there's a huge gap in person and online, I would be disappointed, to be honest, disappointed that they didn't look as good as I thought they did." And a Chinese woman said, "If it's a male, I will be surprised because I had a stereotype that male, they don't use the filter quite often. And it may make me feel a little bit weird if they use that. But she feels it's okay if females use filters. It's understandable and expected. A double standard, sorry," she said, laughing. So different standards for men and women. The only people who commented that they would be distrustful did so in a kind of a qualified way. So the one South Korean woman said, "I respect their intention to use video filter, but I do not want to follow them because my personal opinion is even on social media, we just try to show our real life, not fake one." The interviewer asked, "So you wouldn't trust him?" And she said, "Yeah, I do not trust him." And one Indian female said, "I definitely feel deceived, especially if it was like a romantic relationship. I would feel completely deceived by them for trying to portray something that they are not. And I might like not go forward with it, not because of how they look, but because they weren't like comfortable showing their true selves." So even in these cases where people said they wouldn't trust the person, in the first case, the interviewer had to prompt them. And in the second case, they had to sort of back off and say, it's not because of how they look, but just because they weren't comfortable showing their true selves. So what are the main takeaways of this study? First of all, women use filters more than men, especially beauty filters. More extreme beauty filters appear to be used in Asia compared to the West. Filters are obviously considered normal and acceptable on many social media platforms, even on Zoom. But their use is not unconstrained. There are constraints on their use. Most people say that they are used more in informal and casual communication, that there are distinctions between public and private filter use, and that there are also gender and age differences in demographics. People commented that mostly young females are the ones who are using filters. They did also mention negatives about body dysmorphia, social pressure to use filters to look beautiful, and several of the men commented on the design of the filter and how well it rendered. There were relatively few mentions of deception and little mention of distrust, which surprised us very much. And so it leads us to wonder whether filter use is not in fact strongly, does not in fact strongly affect assessments of trustworthiness. And I think part of the reason for the answers that we're getting is that these people are using filters in playful ways, in completely innocent ways. And so they don't imagine that other people are using them to deceive. They are in a way kind of perhaps naive because they haven't yet experienced a lot of cases of deception involving social media filters, but that may change. Now, obviously, there's some limitations of this study. It's an exploratory study in its very early stages. We only have a few participants each from South Korea and Spain so far. We have unequal numbers of females and males in China, South Korea, and Spain. So if you know any males who use video filters, any Chinese males, I would appreciate if you would tell them about our study. Also, the participants are all video filter users. So we're not representing the perspective of non-users in this study, except incidentally and indirectly, where somebody might comment, for example, a woman might say that they exchange filters with their boyfriend, but their boyfriend doesn't appreciate them or like them as much. So going back now to deepfakes, I think the cause for concern of video filters may be different from that of deepfakes. Video filters, the main cause of concern that was being expressed is about body dysmorphia, whereas with deepfakes, the main concern that has been expressed is about deception with malicious intent. However, the distinction between the two is blurring. Video filters have the potential to be used deceptively, and deepfakes, especially with the deepfake apps, can be used innocently. So what does the future hold? I think we're seeing evidence of emergent norms of filter use, moving from acceptance and tolerance to where there's an expectation of their use, and in some contexts, even a sense that there is social pressure to use them. I predict that more and more people will use filters to enhance their appearance online in the future, and that filters will become more sophisticated in order to enable further modifications, and that these modifications will in turn become normalized to a certain extent. I think already that certain apps that are available, like the Meitu app and the Snow app, enable further modifications that are available in the West. Women and girls are expected to experience the most negative consequences of beauty filter use, consistent with negative effects of advertising and media on self-image and self-esteem. And finally, I believe that social media filters and deepfake apps will converge and become functionally indistinguishable. So what can be done? Obviously, we should educate social media users about the risks of deception through filter and deepfake app use, including how to identify when they are used. And also, I believe that we should work more to flag or tag when a filter or app is used on filtered content. Some social media apps are already doing this, such as TikTok, where there's a hashtag at the bottom that indicates the name of the filter. But workarounds are possible. Some of our participants told us about how they can get around that to make that tag go away. And so my question for you would be, are filtered images and videos produced using apps such as Meitu and Snow also tagged in any way so people would know that people are using filters? I don't know the answer to this, but I hope someone in the audience can tell me. And so with that, I thank you very much for your attention. And here is the video filter research team, and Meredith de Demas is here attending with us today, and she speaks Chinese. So if you have any questions, you can ask them in Chinese and she can answer them.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Karen, for fascinating talks. Now I'd like to invite the discussant, Professor Liu, to have some comments and also have a dialogue.
Sure. Yeah.
Professor
Thank you
Liu.
very much. Okay. Hi. Yeah. It's a great. I won't provide a lot of comments, but I want to instead initiate a discussion I mean, between Susan and the other audience maybe. But I think overall, this is a really interesting topic. And Susan, I mean, know me really well. And I have been working with the trustworthiness of AI. And so I also engage some like user study and find the trustworthiness of AI, different kind of AI technologies. So one thing, I mean, interests me a lot from this talk is, do you think, Susan, some people, I mean, for this kind of filter technology, is gonna be like a one-way ticket? So which means once users start to use it and they're gonna somehow addict to this kind of technology and they want to, go back. So which, I mean, I think about this question because, I mean, some recent study talked aggressively about the usage of VR technologies. It seems like the company like Facebook, like right now called Meta, is trying to educate people to use more and more VR, which is a good way to escape from their real life, right? And of course, maybe they want to make some money. However, they think the people, especially the people who don't really enjoy their real life and want to somehow addict to the VR world. And do you think the future technologies will be the first step to help people to step into the VR world and they cannot escape anymore? So do you think some people, based on your study, some people gonna have a higher chance to addict to this kind of technologies? And do you think this can be a one-way ticket?
I'll answer that in two parts. First of all, I think that the real interesting filters are the beauty filters or the beauty enhancement filters. The playful ones don't pose much of a threat. They are humorous and playful. The beauty filters I do think are addictive. Moreover, I think that there's going to be an escalation in the degree of enhancement that is expected, particularly among women. That already, I think that the standard has been raised in online video about how somebody should look, how a woman should look, how smooth the skin should be. For example, blemishless, that there should be, nice lighting. And these are only the very minor modifications, and already I believe these have become normative. So I think as the modifications become more sophisticated and more realistic, that people are going to want to use them, and they will use them, and it will raise the overall beauty standards. In that sense, I think it will become addictive, maybe in a way similar to how makeup has become addictive offline for many women, where they feel like they can't actually go out in public if they don't have makeup on. Because people would see the difference between their makeup face and their actual face. This is a reality already. It has been for years. Now, will that lead to VR? I think that VR right now needs to be made a lot more accessible and easier to use. These beauty filters are incredibly easy to use. Things like the Meitu app or the Snow app are built into, they work directly with the camera lens. So once you've set the app, any video that you take with it or images that you take with it are filtered. Similarly with Zoom, once you set your Zoom filter settings, they remain that way for every Zoom interaction that you have. And so this is incredibly easy, right? But VR, I mean, still, I think for the Facebook VR, you have to have a headset, right? Some people get nauseous or dizzy when they use VR. It requires also sometimes controlling hand controls. And my hands don't work very well. I can't do those hand controls very well. So it's not anywhere near as easy. But as the technology becomes simpler and more accessible, it is possible that it will draw more people in. Now, that said, many years ago, I mean, like maybe 20 years ago, I heard a talk by a professor in the telecommunications department at Indiana University, Ted Castronova, who was studying economics in Second Life, the virtual world Second Life. And he predicted that within 10, 20 years, that we would all be living in Second Life. Now, it didn't happen. So I'm going to sort of withhold my judgment as to whether I think that people will be spending a great deal of time in virtual reality in the future. But then again, I will qualify that by saying as the technology improves, it may become more and more seductive.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is really interesting because recently I read a number of studies talk about after COVID-19, it totally changed people's way of communication and work, right? So like right now, a lot of people choose work this. I mean, even though right now COVID-19 is getting much. I mean, it won't affect that much. I mean, in American, but still a lot of people choose to stay at home. They don't want to go back to the company, right? However, some study, it's interestingly, some studies show that the effectiveness of working remotely going to improve the work environment, would others say maybe not, right? So they believe like face-to-face engagement, which is more like a true engagement, help, I mean, people, I mean, the magics between the people, right? Well, the other say that remote working, I mean, this COVID-19 changed everything fundamentally, and people rely more on the virtual engagement, virtual communications. I believe this will definitely improve the adoption of different kind of filters in the future. I won't surprise that. But I mean, in your opinion, do you think this kind of virtual engagement or real life face-to-face engagement, which I mean can be a, of course in different scenario can be different, but which way do you think can be better for society?
We can't live entirely online. Well, I don't know, maybe we could, right? Everybody could always just stay home and never go out and interact with other people. It sounds like a science fiction novel to imagine such a reality. And yet I think we are living online more than we were before COVID-19. And people like it, as you said, they don't want to go back to work. They're more comfortable spending less time out in public and interacting with other people. And some people have become, feel awkward actually interacting with people socially face to face. Is this, I do see this happening. Is this a good thing? Probably not. And yet it's good for the environment, right? If we don't drive our cars on the highways and fly in airplanes, and if we stay home more, it's better for the earth. And maybe it's a little bit of a natural corrective. So I imagine that we'll have face-to-face component as well as an online component, and that both will be parts of most people's ordinary lives. What I wonder about is, what about when our online appearance is modified by filters and we are all beautiful, you know, and attractive, and then we see people face to face? Will we think that other people are ugly? Will we feel like we are ugly? Will this, you know, how will this affect social interaction face to face? I think that's an interesting question.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I should leave. I mean, other students may have some other question, but respond to you that this COVID-19, this virtual engagement, US is not the pioneer. So instead, I know that some study in Japan investigate this problem for a while, because the reason is after, I mean, the video games or some virtual engagement become more and more interesting, more and more popular, and more fancy, and increasing number of Japanese young people choose to isolate themselves at home for multiple years. But I think one of the studies show, I think some people isolated for more than like 10 years and just totally enjoy the virtual world. And they don't want to engage with other people, even including the parents. So, I mean, this kind of I won't call that tragedy because they choose to do so. However, I think this kind of virtual technologies like filters will contribute to this group of people. And I believe increasing number of people will choose this kind of social isolation because of technologies. So definitely studies will need to, I mean, investigate this community, right? And to either help them somehow or understand them better, But I believe this can be a really interesting topic. And while you're talking and just think about how to maybe collect more data. And that's the reason, I mean, earlier last year, and you know that I changed my job recently, but one of my interests is maybe in sabbatical time, I want to go to Facebook and work there for 1 year and collect their data. And I want to understand what kind of people choose social isolation and why they're doing that. I'm very interested in this kind of study and maybe help them potentially some way. But this is overall, this is a very interesting topic. And I would like to maybe do something with you in the future.
I'd love to work with you on something like that. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay, Zhuoren, I think maybe I want to deliver this conversation to the rest of the people, especially students who may have interest. So maybe it's your turn.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Professor Liu and Professor Herring. I think this discussion had a very good addition to today's presentation. And I must admit, I didn't realize the importance of face filter technology until just now. The Zoom on my computer suddenly crashed. And when I rejoined the online meeting room, I just wish my face had been replaced with someone else's face to relieve my embarrassment. So I think this technology do have some useful and very, very useful moment for someone. I think now maybe the last part of today's session, the Q&A part. But I think now is the late night in the United States, so I'm afraid we don't have too much time for the Q&A. Maybe just one question. The audience can turn on your microphone to ask questions, or just input your questions in the chat box. I think maybe we can ask the questions for you.
Okay, while the audience is coming up with the question, okay, let me see what are the questions.
I see a question. I see a question in the chat.
Yes.
And recently Jeff Hancock and some colleagues published an article in the Journal of Computer-Mediated Communication where they coined the term AIMC, AI-mediated communication. And I had the pleasure of actually being a reviewer for that manuscript, so I got to read it 3 times before it was published. And I think their idea is a very, very intriguing one. That AI is affecting the way we communicate online, not just, of course, in video is the example that I've been talking about, but in textual communication. So for example, we have, as we're typing along, word processors will suggest different spellings or even different words. We respond to a text message and we'll see some possible responses listed below the message that we can choose. So this is one way in which the AI is, of course, trying to anticipate our needs, but at the same time, I think also shaping the nature of communication. And I resist it personally. So if I'm replying to an email and my emailer offers me the option of saying, you know, great, thanks, or something like that underneath, even if that's similar to something that I want to say, I don't just select the automated answer because it feels impersonal to me. And yet this is a trend that clearly a trend that's taking place that affects our text-based communication as well. And, you know, and of course, obviously in the case of video. So thank you for that question.
I have a question, Susan. So I'm interested in knowing the extent to which AI has been used in communications between government and the citizens. Are you aware of any incidences or examples? This kind of AI-mediated communications have been utilized by government in their communications with the citizens.
I have not. I've not heard about that, and unfortunately, no. It's a little bit not something that's come across my desk, but I wouldn't be surprised. What was I just reading the other day about where AI is? Of course, AI is taking on any number of roles now, including making medical diagnoses and evaluating people as insurance risks. And so given that it's being applied in so many domains, that it wouldn't surprise me at all. And of course, obviously, if the government is using it, then there are some consequential kind of implications of that. Does anybody here know of any examples? I don't, I'm sorry.
Well, if I may, I want to ask a follow-up question, because the last point that you made in the PowerPoint is about, fraud, right? And I was curious to know whether you have heard of cases where AI-mediated communications has been used for, conducting fraud or fraud examination.
Indeed. I can tell you a personal case and a case that I know from the literature. The case from the literature involves a synthesized, a deepfake voice. So it's just audio. Somebody synthesized the voice of a bank president in Germany based on that person's voicemail messages. So when you called his phone and he wasn't there and you heard his voice saying, "I'm not there, blah, blah, blah," leave messages. They took that as input text and they used a deepfake learning algorithm and they generated more words in his voice and used that to fake a phone call from the bank president to a bank in England requesting the transfer of millions of dollars. And the transfer actually took place. The fraud was successful. So that's one then I think very concerning kind of example involving a voice deepfake. And then in my personal experience, or rather it happened to a friend of a friend, my sister's good friend is an older woman who has been the victim of a dating site scam. Although she herself, her friend, is kind of in denial about this. And one of the things she said to my sister is, "No, I know this is real. I know he is real because we have video chatted and he looks like his photographs." Well, my sister had traced the photographs as being those of a Louisiana senator, member of US Congress, who had pictures all over the internet. Obviously, her friend was not very internet savvy, and so she hadn't Googled these pictures to see, who he was. And he had been sharing these pictures with her and saying, "This is me." And yet she said, "We were video chatting and he was moving. And so I know it was really him." Well, she saved a screen capture of one of those chats, and my sister happened to notice that there was a watermark on the bottom, or part of a watermark on the bottom, for Clidio, which is a deep fake service, which can allow a person, you, to animate the head of somebody else based on as little as a single photograph. Now, obviously, in this case, they had many photographs of this senator that they could have used. And that is apparently what this person is doing. My sister suspects that the scammer is probably based in Nigeria, and that this has been as part of a larger ring of people, but that this was one of the tricks that they used that persuaded her friend that, yes, this was a real person who really looked like the photos that he shared.
Thank you.
For your previous question, Elaine, if I can interrupt, I have some case for the AI supported CMC use case, like a lot of chat books for the consumer consumer support system. Like when you have some transaction problems and you want to talk to Taobao or Alibaba, they just give you a chatbot, and they are all AI supported communication. And you need to take a long time or long tour until you can get a human agency to talk to you, something like that.
Yeah, that I think I got that from the presentation. My question is more about the use of this kind of AI assisted communication in government citizen interaction. And that's where I'm coming from. I guess, I'm particularly interested in the use of this kind of technology in increasing the trust of citizens in government or decreasing the trust of citizens in government. I have no idea, but I'm fascinated by it.
I think some public sectors are using AI supported application to recruit for the human resource management, like for the recruiting and selecting applicants. They apply the AI based or supported interview at the really first round to just filtering the possible or potential applicants to the second round. So that may be another use case, but I don't know if that's ever used in the government department.
There's already so much distrust in the United States of the government that it's hard to imagine that the use of AI would increase trust, particularly if we're heading toward a disbelief by default kind of online environment. And bear in mind that these deep fakes are coming on the tail of fake news, all the allegations of fake news that have been put out in textual communication. And so already there's been an undermining of trust in news, for example. And now I think with the deep fakes, we're going to see potentially an undermining of trust in with video as well. So I'll be curious to see what kind of AI technologies emerge as being most trustworthy and reliable. Obviously, there's a lot of work that's being done to try to counter the threats of deep fakes and to be able to somehow validate that a video is authentic. I'm not an expert in the computational methods, but I know that a variety of solutions are being explored. And if we could see that a video was, had been endorsed as being trustworthy, then that might go some way towards making citizens more trusting in the governmental AI communication.
I think in the case of like a company trying to use AI agency to interview the applicants, some applicants believe that they will be less biased because they are talking to a machine, like they're not talking to the human. So they trust the AI agency more than the human interviewer. So yeah.
Yet we know that AI agents can incorporate biases, especially if they are learning in the wild, and they take on the biases of the input language, garbage in, garbage out. And even if they're not learning in the wild, they can incorporate biases of the creators. This is one of the things that we've been talking about in my gender and computerization class this semester.
Yeah,
Okay. Just go ahead.
It just because I only heard cases like 311 is utilizing AI in US local government in very, very few cases. And I always curious to know whether or not there are more than that, but I guess this is not something I gathered from your response. It may not be something that's widely used. Otherwise you would have heard it a long time ago, right? So I get that part. So thank you very much.
What about in China?
Yeah, I think maybe there's really really common, not so common to use AI technology in the human to human communication, especially in the public section in China's government. But I see the Q&A section is very enthusiastic, but I know it's very late night in the United States. There are lots of participants in the United States, so we have to end this session now. I think today's presentation reveals a very interesting and important topic in today's world. If we use AI technology in human-to-human communications, it will raise many problems, and we need to do more deep explorations. I think Professor Herring's research sets a very good example for us. Thank you to our distinguished guest and to our colleagues and audience. It's very nice to meet you online, and thank you all for taking your time out of your busy schedules. I wish we can have more opportunities to have discussions in the future. So I think that's it. See you around.
Thank you for organizing it.
Thank you. Thank you for the brilliant presentation and discussion.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.